Hello and welcome to LOLC Securities Weekly Market Roundup, the sound of profitability. I'm Tharandu Amarasekara. Sri Lanka's air connectivity with the world is expected to be reaching the pre-pandemic levels by the second quarter. It's expected to be hitting around 40, and already there are some top global airlines, more than 30 of them operating in and out of Sri Lanka. This is expected to be a major boost to our tourism.
36 top global international airlines are operating flights to Sri Lanka, with 32 of them providing services to the Bandaranaike International Airport, and 3 airlines operate flights to Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport, while 1 airline serves Jaffna International Airport. During the first 2 months of 2024, the AASL handled over 1.5 million passengers and over 9,000 international aircraft movements.
Purchasing Managers Index is something which indicates the level of economic activity in a country, especially from a manufacturing and a services viewpoint. Now, the PMI of Sri Lanka for the manufacturing sector in February showed a value of 56, which is mainly driven by the food and beverages sector. This indicates an increasing level of economic activity in the country.
Employment and inventory expanded during the month with the new orders and production. The accommodation, food and beverage subsectors continued to grow amid tourist arrivals recording the highest since January 2022. Employment increased due to new recruitments made by several companies ahead of the festive season.
The President of Sri Lanka, Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe, has given the go-ahead for a fully-fledged development bank for the nation, mainly focusing on the growth of the SME sector and tourism-related businesses. Many international funds have shown interest to be a part of this venture as well.
The proposed development bank will have a minimum of Rs 500 billion Tier 1 capital and total assets of around Rs 1 trillion. It will also consist of a rationalized branch network of around 150 to 200 and staff of around 2,000. It will be governed by an independent board comprising professionals and FDI partners.
The Asian Development Bank, in continuing support for the growth of the Sri Lankan economy, has announced a $100 million funding, especially for the SME sector, mainly to prevent them being exposed to some of the external shocks like economic crisis and climate change. Interestingly, $500,000 from this fund is meant for women-led SMEs to empower their growth.
ADB, through participating institutions, will open a $50 million line credit for underserviced SMEs in export, tourism, technology, agriculture and the manufacturing sectors. The project will build on the government's equity contribution through the National Credit Guarantee Institution (NCGI), which provides partial credit guarantees on loans to SMEs.
And now it's time for this week's corporate highlights. Power and energy sector continues to gain attention from foreign investors, with the latest being United Petroleum of Australia.
United Petroleum is one of the fastest growing companies in Australia, specializing in retail and wholesale fuel markets and convenience stores. Also, the company was established in 1993.
Apparel giant Brandix has become the first Sri Lankan private sector entity to commit to the United Nations Programme on Gender-Based Violence and Women in Leadership.
Women constitute 80% of its workforce, and its Indian facility is recognized as the largest employer of women in the country. The branding strategy of Rising Together promotes inclusion, diversity, and equity, with a focus on gender equity, an inclusive workplace, and generational diversity.
The Chamber of Young Lankan Entrepreneurs, better known as Coil, which represents some of the largest enterprises in Sri Lanka and the entrepreneurs, celebrated their 25th year AGM on the 10th of March at Hilton Colombo. And very importantly, they ushered in the new executive committee headed by Thushila Radalla, the new chairman. And when asked about the future direction of Coil, this is what he had to say.
This year, the direction of Coil is to continue fostering the growth of our member organizations, while also empowering the SMEs, which represents 75% of Sri Lankan enterprises with an over 50% contribution to the GDP. Our key theme is to go from nationalism to globalization, and we will achieve this through multiple different initiatives.
Hi, this is Amrita Alhakon, and this is the International Business Highlight. Western sanctions that were imposed in Russia were supposed to undermine its war with Ukraine and create a dent in its economy. Yet, the Russian economy is expected to grow this year much more than that of the US and the EU areas. Russian airspace is closed for most Western planes, and Western ports are closed for Russian vessels. There is a formal cap introduced or imposed on processing and buying of Russian oil. And in theory, it is illegal to sell anything that can be used by the Russian military. Despite all of this, the Russian economy remains uncollapsed. They are focusing on a long war with the Ukraine that has been a key driver of the Russian economy.
And that's it for this week's LOLC Securities Weekly Market Roundup. And no matter what business or investment decision you make it with the right intel. I'll see you next week.